Fox está perdiendo la cabeza completamente, mientras las cosas simplemente empeoran dentro de la Casa Blanca. Así que por supuesto, mientras los medios del régimen estatal necesitan a los medios del régimen estatal, traen a Lara Trump y a otros miembros de la familia Trump porque quieren intentar convencer al pueblo de que los precios se están reduciendo, que todo es increíble y que todo está muy bien. Yo creo que todo esto se debe a que la familia de Donald Trump está ganando millones y millones de dólares a través de su nueva criptomoneda. Lo que sea que estén vendiendo pero relacionado con cripto. Pero eso es lo que está pasando con los estadounidenses y esto es lo que dijo Lara Trump en Fox. Mira por favor.
For the Democrats, look, prices are coming down. It's not going to happen immediately, but people are actually feeling it out there. This is the thing they should have been paying attention to a year ago when the American people were saying, you know, inflation is really high. It's coming down with Donald Trump. We see the numbers all over.
Literalmente, lo contrario de lo que dicen los números. Tal vez en sus mansiones de Florida piensan que, bueno, la verdad, yo no sé ni siquiera qué piensen. Pero en su mente de fantasía tal vez piensen que Estados Unidos se tienen que enfocar en esto. Mientras que en realidad lo que están haciendo es arruinar día con día la economía estadounidense. Entonces el nuevo invento que han creado es sobre una actriz y sus jeans. Y hacen ver como que los liberales están enojados por esto. Ellos literalmente están creando cosas con las que luego se enojan. Esto se llama ser un sociópata. Miren el clip, por favor.
The place, but this inauthenticity that they continue to thrive for, like this beer stuff, I mean, this is never going to work for them. When they're obsessing over jeans ads and now they're diving in deep on the beer, I just don't think it's going to work. The American people like something authentic. That's why they like Donald Trump. It's why they didn't like Kamala Harris. It's why Tim Walz connected with about 0 men out there. So good luck to the Democrats. I don't think this one's going to hit.
Llega un punto en el que yo no tengo la menor idea de lo que están hablando estas personas. Sinceramente, para mí no son nada más que lunáticos. No hay una sola persona en estos foros comunitarios por todo el país diciendo: ¿sabes? El verdadero problema que hay es sobre una mujer famosa con jeans. Estoy muy molesto por eso. Esto es algo que no está ocurriendo. ¿Sabes de qué se están quejando realmente las personas? Y no pensando en alguien con jeans. En que no tienen dinero para sobrevivir otro mes. Que no les alcanza el dinero para la renta. Que no les alcanza el dinero para la comida. Que tal vez todo es más costoso. Si antes vivían con las justas, ahora se tienen que endeudar para poder vivir tal y cual estaban viviendo antes de que llegue Donald Trump a la presidencia. Donald Trump está desapareciendo personas por todo el país y está haciendo ver completamente débil a todos. Todo esto mientras hay reuniones entre Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin e incluso el primer ministro de India, el primer ministro Modi. Literalmente están dejando en ridículo a Donald Trump. Pero Steve Miller quiere hablar sobre algo en los medios del régimen estatal. Dice que Stephen Colbert es un tipo repugnante, asqueroso y completamente baboso. Mira el clip, por favor.
It's a slime ball. The guy's just disgusting. I mean, he's not just, he has no talent. He's not liked. Obviously, he was fired for a reason. But he's just a sleazy, disgusting, smarmy guy. And look, it takes a lot to make me really despise somebody. Or maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But Colbert is really, he's a horrible person.
Está hablando de sí mismo ahí. Y cuando empiezas a mirar algunas de estas estadísticas, los despidos aumentaron un 39% en agosto. Los datos de vivienda muestran que los vendedores ahora superan a los compradores por más de medio millón en el mercado, el mayor desequilibrio jamás registrado en el mercado. Los consumidores estadounidenses, con las puntuaciones de crédito más altas, están empezando a atrasarse en sus pagos de deuda. Y empeora aún más cuando vemos los números de empleo. Las empresas estadounidenses anunciaron solo 1.494 nuevos empleos en agosto, y es el número más bajo para ese mes desde el 2009. Así que lo siento, Lara, pero tú sencillamente estás viviendo en un mundo de fantasías. A continuación, quiero que veas esta entrevista realizada por la congresista demócrata Mickey Sherin, quien está postulándose para ser gobernadora de Nueva Jersey, y habla de varios temas de alta relevancia en cuanto a acciones tomadas por la administración de Donald Trump. Mira el clip, por favor.
Cheryl, who is running for governor of New Jersey, Congresswoman, it's great to see you. I haven't seen you on in a while, so we got to get you on here more frequently. That's on me, not on you. But I want you to react to some of what we saw right there as the Trumps are saying everything is great. From New Jersey, are people waking up in Jersey now saying, thank you, Donald, golden age?
Wow, that is a barrage of, well, I think in New Jersey we'd call it a barrage of shit, but, you know, other people may disagree. But wow, really hard to really know where to start. So Lara Trump, why she thinks anyone's looking at numbers when they're firing anybody from the administration looking at economic numbers, I do not know. But I will tell you what's going on here with tariffs. Chuck, who's a coffee store owner, was telling me that a bag of beans in a big burlap sack, he was showing me these bags that he had, used to cost $2.50. And as he put it, because Trump got in some fight with the Brazilian head guy, now they're $7. And so he's going to have to raise prices on everyone. Prices are in no way going down. In fact, we are seeing them everywhere starting to go up. And I think we're just going to see that trend continuing. The jobs numbers have been bad. We lost about 10,000 jobs in New Jersey, and we're a really resilient economy. So if that's happening in New Jersey, I can only imagine what the rest of the country looks like. And then Stephen Miller's attacks on Stephen Colbert, of all people, that guy lives in my town. He is known for being a really great quality guy. He teaches CCD. Back in the day, he's always thoughtful, friendly. He's like a great dad. Like, where that's coming from, that hatred that he was spewing, is just shocking. So again, really kind of, as we would have said as kids with DC Comics, it's kind of bizarro world, what goes on over in the right wing and MAGA world.
Mentioned the people of New Jersey are very resilient people. My family's from Jersey. I grew up in Long Island, so I take that trip to visit my cousins quite frequently growing up there. And Americans, by and large, are very resilient people. And so one of the tragedies, though, is that so many people have done everything they could to try to deal with these tariffs, like the story of Chuck, who owns the coffee shop. And they tried for as long as they could to, quote unquote, eat the tariffs themselves, because they know if they pass it on to consumers, then the customers are going to get pissed at them, and it puts them in an antagonistic place with their customers, especially as you have that person in the Oval Office saying that actually it's the foreign countries paying it, and there's so much disinformation and lies out there. But I just think what we're seeing now, especially as each month progresses, is the story like Chuck. And I'm sure you hear that countless times over and over again when you travel New Jersey of, I tried, I did everything I could. I was scrappy. I can't do it anymore. I got to pass it on, or I'm going to go bankrupt. And by the way, bankruptcies across this country are at record highs since that period of like 2009 as well right now. There's all that bad data out there.
It's horrible. I was talking to someone who sells different sports equipment, and he had a contract to provide some sports equipment, and some of the pieces that he needed were from overseas. So he had a huge tariff that came in on it, and he wasn't even going to make the profit of selling all this sports equipment, but he had a contract. He had to do it. He had to pay these extra tariffs. And he was talking to some people in his town, and they're saying, well, you shouldn't have to pay that. You shouldn't pay that. And he's like, who do you think is paying for these ridiculous tariffs? It's the American people. That's who's paying. And so as businesses don't have the contracts, and as they aren't able to do this, because, Chuck, who we were talking about, it's expensive to print menus. It's expensive to change signage. So he was waiting for a little bit, hoping they would go away, but that's another added cost. So again and again and again, these crazy tariffs that are going on are costing the American people. And that's why I don't think people are feeling their costs are going down. In fact, they're going up.
And of course, you're running for governor of New Jersey. An issue that governors are facing right now across the country is Donald Trump threatening, and in a few cases already actually invading states with the military. Now, you come with an added background as a Navy helicopter pilot, and you know what the armed forces are supposed to do and what the armed forces are not supposed to do. And of course, you're running for governor, and of course, you're a congresswoman. So one of the places that often gets mentioned as a target of invasion, and the fact that I even have to say this, I think to myself, am I saying this in the United States of America, is certain cities in New Jersey that Donald Trump has called out before. Obviously, you've had mayors arrested in New Jersey, congresswomen being prosecuted in Jersey. So Jersey's a state that gets targeted, and the city's in Jersey. So what's your reaction to all of that, and just what we're seeing as well with these masked ICE agents running around and kidnapping people, as I see it?
Yeah, no, I hear about this all the time. And I'll tell you, I've served, as you mentioned, in the armed forces. So I know what military people are trained in. It is not law enforcement. It is people are trained in war. And do you really want these men and women with that training and without the training of de-escalation and policing to be on the streets with your kids? They don't want to be there. They shouldn't be there. And then at the same time, that's why we have the Posse Comitatus Act, so that they can only be utilized. The National Guard should only be utilized in very specific types of situations, an armed insurrection, for example. And so Trump is illegally putting them on the street and then threatening to put them on other streets. And so it was great to see that court win yesterday in California where the judge said, no, this is totally illegal. This is against the Posse Comitatus Act. This is not what armed forces should be utilized for. And as governor, I am going to make sure that that doesn't happen here in New Jersey, that here we are standing up, that we are pushing back against that. But we also have that problem with ICE agents. I was just hearing from a police officer the other day who had a run-in with an ICE agent here in New Jersey. The guy came up to him, no insignia, no indication of who he worked for or what his background was, and says, I need you to go do X to one of our police officers. And the guy said, I don't know who you are. Show me some identification. And the ICE agent said, no, I don't have to. You have to listen to me. And if you don't, I'm going to put you in jail. And so the police officer said, well, I'll put you in jail and we can both sort it out from there. And then there was this standoff. And finally, the guy shows him some identification. But what a ridiculous amount of lawlessness. And what I have been concerned about from the start and what we are seeing is Trump has trained these ICE agents to respond to him and his agenda and not to the law or the Constitution. And that's really dangerous. And that's why people are very uneasy. And that's why as governor, again, I am going to protect public safety. I'm going to protect the people of New Jersey and demand more accountability. It's also why I'm on legislation in Congress to demand that ICE agents are identifiable. I mean, that's just the bare minimum for law enforcement.
While I have you on here, I got to ask you a question about kind of international affairs, especially given your background as a Navy helicopter pilot. This video that Donald Trump posted on social media, which is our military purporting to kill, Donald Trump said, 11 people in a fishing boat off Venezuela. We've heard a lot of mixed stories about what it is. Trump said that this boat had drugs on it and was going to the United States. It's a 16-foot boat, so it's hard to believe that it could even have the requisite amount of fuel to get to the United States. But I won't go down that rabbit hole. I'll just say that Marco Rubio first said that it was going to Trinidad, not the United States, and then changed it and said, no, I meant to say the United States. Then you have Pete Hegseth saying, I just want everybody to know it's not AI, which is a weird thing to say because that wouldn't be my first instinct to even think that as a thing in the first place. But then we have the issue of under what legal authority do you, even if these are bad people, I want the biggest ramifications with drug dealers, especially bad drug people who are bringing drugs into the United States. If that's true, I want the full force and effect of the law. But then there's this question of, is our military just going to go around and just, kill people in fishing boats? And then we, the people, are not, we're several days later of Trump posting a killing video, and we don't know the details of what the heck just happened. And that's never really happened before in our military history, that something like that just goes down. And I can't be silent and be like, I need to know more about what's going on, because to me, this violates my common sense of these types of situations. But you're a former Navy helicopter pilot. What do you make of all this?
Really dangerous times. We're in incredibly dangerous times right now. And I'll tell you that I was in Congress during Trump's first administration. And I saw again and again and again how he tried to create a personal militia, how he tried to have the armed services as his personal militia answering to him like a king, that they wouldn't answer to the Constitution. They wouldn't follow any rules other than what he told them to do. And there was a lot of work that was done by different admirals and generals to stop him from doing that. And the forces got as close as Fort Belvoir, but they didn't go into the city, luckily, during the Black Lives Matter protests. But in the aftermath of that, there were a lot of people in camouflage with firearms with masks and sunglasses all over the mall, unidentifiable. And when they were asked, they wouldn't identify themselves. There was some thought that they were part of the Department of Corrections, but Trump, again, was trying to find his own militia answerable to him, not to the law or the Constitution. And then fast forward to January 6th, where he had developed this private militia. And I think most of us believe, and I think there's evidence that suggests he had no intention of leaving office. But his private militia wasn't quite strong enough at that time. And so what did he do? He gets back into office. He fires admirals and generals across the board who he thinks could stand up to him. And he's continued that, make no mistake. He's recently fired several 3-star admirals and the head of special forces who, I think he felt like weren't totally loyal to him. He's put Pete Hegseth, who is the most incompetent Secretary of Defense this nation has ever had, who is an alcoholic, who has put classified information on unclassified systems to his wife and to his brother in a way that would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous. And so here's a guy, he's run organizations into the ground. And that's the guy that Trump puts in charge of the armed forces and never removes him or holds him accountable, because his very presence as the Secretary of Defense undermines the faith and the trust in our armed forces. And so at every turn, Trump is trying to move people out and replace them with loyalists. He's trying to denigrate the military, as he's always done. And at the same time, he's putting more money into ICE than he is into the Marine Corps, so he can build up this personal militia, as I was saying, accountable to him and not the Constitution. And now we're seeing things like what he's putting out now. And there's no accountability and there's no oversight. He's firing the lawyers that in the military that would provide some of this oversight. And so again and again and again, he is trying to centralize power to himself. And when he's doing so with the military, that's so dangerous, which is why I think that court decision in California is so important on the National Guard. I think it's important that that DC is now taking him to court on the National Guard stuff. And it's really critically important for governors in this nation to stand up, because that's where our power is. Expanding state power in these times with strong governors is going to be what pushes him back and is going to be where we can have accountability, where we can actually make sure that the American people are getting good information. Like I said, when Trump has information he doesn't like, he just starts firing the people who are in charge of it. Where we're going to start to have to run good health programs and vaccinations, as other states are, as he's firing the CDC. It's why I'm running for governor. I think this is key. And I think this race here in New Jersey is the only race in the nation right now, is so central to how we chart this path forward and how we set the table for everything that's coming up next year in 2026.
Finally, particularly New Jersey, Trump's had a historically, I feel like, abusive relationship with the state, from the harm he inflicted on Atlantic City to what happens on the grounds of Bedminster. I still find it very ghoulish that he buried his first wife in the back lot of it. And then the Daily Mail exposed that it was like under all of these shrubs. And, there's a whole strange world going on over there. But he screwed over the people pretty badly in New Jersey with bankrupting these casinos over and over again, not paying contractors. But then he kind of seeped back in and made all of these big promises. I remember that speech that he gave in the Jersey Shore area during the campaign. I'm going to make everything affordable. I'm going to bring peace on day one. I'm going to solve all of your problems. I promise you, Jersey, I've got it. And for reasons that still, I don't know why, he made some progress in the state with those promises. And then what's the first thing he does? Gets rid of your health care, gets rid of your Medicaid, does the exact thing that he did decades before at a larger scale. So finally, before we wrap up this interview, are you seeing a difference? Like, are the people like, you defrauded us again, you just did it, and they're pissed, or is it still wishy-washy?
I think there's a lot of remorse. So here in New Jersey, we've been, I've been speaking to thousands of people. Nobody feels like their costs are going down. Everybody knows costs are going up here in New Jersey. People are concerned. They're concerned about the chaos of the tariffs and how it's putting small businesses out of business, costing our major corporations more money, and they're freezing hiring and new projects because they don't know where the economy is going under Trump. That's why we're working so hard, and I'm working so hard to chart a new path forward. So I would love it if all of your viewers wanted to come help out here in New Jersey. It's one of the only competitive races going on in the nation right now. So you can come here and knock on doors. You can get on the phones. You can get on text. So please go to MikeySherrill.com. We are working incredibly hard because you're exactly right. The bad news is this state swung 10 points to the right in 2024, one of the largest swings in the entire nation. The good news is we have an opportunity to create this mandate here in New Jersey against Trump's policy. We can not only swing New Jersey back, but do more to make sure that as people are wondering, how are the American people receiving Trump's agenda? Here in New Jersey, we have the answer. And that's what we're working to make sure we can provide to the nation. So again, we can set this table going forward.
Bueno amigos, llegamos al final del video, espero que este video les haya gustado, les haya servido y lo hayan entendido. Como siempre les digo, para mí lo más importante es su opinión y me encantaría que la pongan en los comentarios. Además, si les gusta el contenido del video, si les gusta saber de política estadounidense, les va a encantar suscribirse al canal ya que subo varios videos todos los días. Mi nombre es José Alvarado, soy economista y estoy comprometido a informarte diariamente. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.